Well, thank you so much. I do appreciate the large turnout. I'm Norma Casson. I'm one of the presidents of the CCCIA, and Susie Schemmel, who is our organizer of this wonderful event. It's my pleasure to introduce Denise Wilson. Denise is our first speaker, and she's been a seed collection project manager for the National Park Service in 8 Western National Parks, including Carlsbad Arches, Black Canyon of the Gunnison, Sand Creek Massacre, Devil's Tower, and Theodore Roosevelt. Prior to that, for 12 years, Denise was the Chicago Botanic Gardens Western Seed Collector. I'm originally from Illinois, so that's pretty cool. Oak Park.
Spring Grove.
Yeah, okay. Collector in 8 states of 3 seed banks, the Millennium, Seeds of Success, and the Dixon National Tallgrass Prairie Seed Banks. She has a master's in botany from the University of Colorado, Denver. Today, she's going to teach us how to collect native seeds from our backyards. That's key. So, welcome to Denise.
In 2007, we closed our Boulder office and we built a 1,000 square foot studio addition. And when we were finished, we had a 9 by 28 foot strip between that building and the driveway. And we had to revegetate it. And of course, it was like gravel and sand. And so the first thing we did, we had a half a load of reconstituted soil brought in by Pioneer Sand and Gravel. And then we went down to Freehof's and they were selling out all their green goods, and we bought everything that was called high elevation, right? And then we waited to see what was going to happen. Well, more on that later. In the meantime, why should we grow native plants? Come on, there we go. You're going to be more successful. That's the main reason why. Ecotypic seed is seed typical from the ecosystem that it's coming from. So are the plants. And look outside. These are the plants which have adapted to this, right? And so that's what you want. You're also going to use less water. You're going to water it less often. For our strip that I just mentioned, I think we water maybe 3 or 4 times in the summer if we have a long, prolonged period of warmth and no rain. We also want to attract butterflies and birds and pollinators, right? And we want a native corridor. We've got about 1 million species of insects, which represent 40% of our living organisms on Earth. And you can do something because you have a microhabitat on your land. So, how are you going to do that? And I'm open to people from the audience yelling things out. So, tell me if you know any of these plants. They're all native. Yeah, we got the larkspur. That's up in the upper right. Yep.
Which one is larkspur flower?
Blanket flower, yes. This one, early.
Oh yeah.
Ask, yeah. Good. Good job, y'all. So, you want a prize? And here it is. See me afterward and I'll give you something a little bit more. Anyhow, so what you want to do is you want to know where to come back to, because these plants are not going to look the same when they're in seed. We're talking about 6 weeks later and they're probably brown. They may have lost some of their leaves. And so you want to take pictures with your phone, because if you download that, then you'll have the info of where the picture was taken. If you've got permission, or you're on somebody else's, your own land, you can plant flags. You can use a map it out, but you're going to need to somehow let yourself know where to come back to find those pretty flowers when they don't look like that anymore. So, what's this one? Somebody.
Wallflower.
Who said that?
Me, but I'm walking closer so I see it.
All right. All right. We have a few prizes anyway. Okay, yes, it's a western wallflower, and it looks very much like a stick when it's getting ready to have its seeds, and even the pods that have the seeds on them look very stick-like. What's this one? It's in the daisy family. Well, no, actually it isn't. Never mind. Because it's the mouse ears. And that's going to look like this. There's going to be a pod that forms that's sort of green, and then it turns brown. And the seeds themselves are, I can't even show you half a millimeter. They're tiny. So that's nature. Nature is protecting the seed inside until it's time for that seed to germinate. So there's going to be wrapping around it. What else have we got from up here? This one should be familiar too. Yes, pussy toes. Pussy toes. Oh, well, actually, these are from up here. These are more for Cold Creek Canyon. Let's go. And they look fuzzy. All of the Asteraceae family disperses its seed by these really fuzzy things using the wind. So when you see fuzzy, you've got the Aster family. Just be sure you're not picking a dandelion, right? You know what a dandelion seed looks like. Well, if it's a little bit bigger than a dandelion, it's probably the false dandelion, which is also not native. So good to know though. And this one, early, very early. Golden banner. Yeah, yes. And you get those pods, and those pods turn a light color brown. And this one is in the daisy family, right? Daisy family. It's an original, not a daisy. Lisa Simpson would say. And they always look fuzzy, and they come from white to pinks to purples and lavenders. And there's several species that happen throughout the summer, so you can also collect those. And keep in mind that these are plants that if you get them, a plant from a garden center, you will probably have better success. It will be dicey because it hasn't been grown at your elevation. So, but you might have success with those. And these in seed are very easy to spot, and they make a nice rustling sound and a clunky sound when you walk through, because those pods have the seeds just rattling around. Next we have some shady. We're going to a shady environment, and this is a cute little thing with very recognizable seeds, because the little pea-sized pod has magenta stripes that go across like that. It's very recognizable. Low to the ground. How about some edibles? Have you heard of valerian helping sleep? So this would be, yeah. And that's what the pods will look like. And we should all be familiar with this one too. It's kind of low to the ground and edible. Yeah. Yeah, somebody said onion over there. Who said onion? Yes, that's the nodding onion. And the green and the bulbs are edible. And it's going to look like this. And those little black are like BB size. Those are the seeds. If you see that, they're ready. You don't have to bother to cut into them or check them out in any way. But that's what it's going to look like. This is the Grucci's Meadow in late June. And look at all those pink ones. That's the onion. And the yellow is all arnica. It's the sunny arnica, as opposed to the one in the shade. that you find in the woods. And this should be familiar too.
Can you speak up a little?
Oh yes, I can speak up a little, definitely. Thanks for telling me that. So we have a
Who's being parsley?
parsley, yes.
Yarrow.
Yeah, close. And that's what it looks like when it's going to seed. Next. Okay, what about these problem areas that you may have? How about above the leach field? Yeah, the raspberries will do well above the leach field. We use that to help revegetate. Years and years I pulled out the Canada thistle and finally just rounded up. It's like, I'm done with this. And we had to get something down. Louder. Okay, gotcha. So the Boulder raspberry has a white flower. It's really big. That's the one that's not quite as edible. You're looking for the raspberry that has the white flower that's more like that size, coin size. This one is, yes, you had said it. So right now you can get some cultivars of the yarrow in all kinds of different colors. Be careful because the rhizomes can take over the area that you use for your gardening. I want to go over some other plants that don't take special seed treatment, and they're easy to grow. They'll come within the 3 months that we have for them to grow up here, and you can raise them beforehand. So anybody have any ideas of what those plants up here might be? Any suggestions, thoughts, guesses?
Columbine?
Yes, columbine is perfect. Yeah, and the onion does, and pink stew, and catmint, and coneflower, and black-eyed Susan, and the poppies, and agastache. The last two, poppies and the anise, I've had trouble getting those to come back, but I'm up at 9,000 feet, and many of you would be perhaps lower than me and be able to do well with those. Let's not forget about grasses because they can fill in areas. We have a lot of native grasses that are very beautiful. This one in particular I like. But it likes it slightly wetter, so you want to put it maybe, you would, along the side of the driveway, swale dips. And here's a favorite of mine, because it kind of blows. This is Perry's oat grass. Those two last ones were clump grasses. How about this one? Crazy looking thing. Nope, it's tall, and that may not be a very good picture of it. But I'm bringing it up just because it's got this wonderful evolutionarily advanced seed that when it drops, it pointed and it goes right into the ground, and then dew collects on the thread that's attached, and then the next day when the dew dries and it's there's no moisture, it just naturally drills itself into the ground. Pretty cool. And it'll drill itself into your clothes too. All right, so why would we want genetic diversity? First of all, what is it? Okay, it's all of the traits of the particular species that you're interested in, and that includes color, as we're seeing here, right? But it also includes drought resistance and early season, late season, seeding capacity, and all kinds of other traits. So what you want to do, if you're collecting, you want to collect from as much of the population as you can, just a little bit, right? Collect there and there and there out in the field, and get all of the traits that you can possibly capture, because that's going to cover a wide range of conditions in your environment. Before you pick, there's going to be some things that you need to know. Permission is all this land is owned by somebody, right? We've got a wonderful form right here in this room. I have a sign-up sheet back there, and you don't have to take notes. If you put your name and email on the sign-up sheet, I'll send you the PowerPoint. It's got some links toward the end. You won't have to write those down. But also it's got a column if you want to share your email with this group and you're interested in giving permission and getting permission from other people to collect on other places other than, you know, the acreage that you have, then sign up on that sheet and we'll connect everybody here. You're gonna wanna go back to where, remember you saw those beautiful flowers. Oh my goodness, where the heck were they? You're gonna have to go back and monitor and see how far along they are. It takes somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 or 6, usually closer to 6 weeks before it goes to seed. So I'm gonna talk about the cut test later to absolutely be sure that you've got a real live seed. But there isn't any point in collecting if you have insects in the seed capsules. So cut into the seed capsule at least and make sure that there's no insects in there. And here's the rule. This is a hard, fast rule. For sustainability, you don't collect more than 20% in your population. Just, that's it. That's it. So if you're looking out and you see 12 plants, how many plants can you collect from?
2.
Yeah, 2.5. Yeah. Or if you see 10 plants and they each have 6, you know, buds on them, now you've got 10 times 6, you've got 60, 60 times 20%, you can collect 12 of those individual capsules from different plants around. So that's the way to think about it. And do that, and you're not going to be harming any native population. And you're going to be maximizing your genetic diversity because you're collecting throughout the population, right? Yeah, so what do you need to do all of this? I like to have this little dude, mini Swiss Army knife that has the little tiny little, well, you can see it's got the tiny little knife, scissors in there that cuts right into little seeds. And I carry it in the field, and I can cut into those seeds and see if they're ready. And we'll get to some more of that. I also use a hand lens with an LED light. And I like the one that is, the brand is Pineapple, that I like the best. It's got 40 magnification and it's pretty rugged. And you can also, for 40 bucks online, this is a USB plug-in microscope. If you're a science nerd, nature nerd, you got grandkids, I love it. And I give it to my people out in the field and they take pictures with it on their computer and they can email me the pictures and say, is this ready yet? And I can say, let's wait a week. That's the biggest thing that happens usually is that we collect seeds too early. They're not quite ready. So that's why the cut test would help you. So if you want to just do it yourself and go online, you're going to see something like this. And what I'm going to tell you is that you don't want to store it in plastic. Please store it in something that gets air, and you'll have better success with your seeds. Since permits are required, and we're talking about city, county, and state parks, we really do need to have written permits in those places. That's just, those are places that you just, you know, it's going to be harder. But on BLM and U.S. Forest Service land, the land of many uses, right? We do have the right to collect, but there are some conditions involved. It's only for our personal use. It's a small amount, and they usually mean less than 10%, 10 pounds of whatever it is you're collecting. It has to be a common plant. It can't be rare. It can't be uncommon. Shouldn't be collecting if you go out and you look and you see only 2 plants of whatever it is you're interested in. I don't think that's, for that place, it's not common enough. So abundancy, you want a low market value, so you're not going to be out there collecting timber, right? You can't sell it commercially because you got it for free and you don't have a written permit, right? Avoid the trails, just walk away from the trails. You also avoid any potential hazard from somebody, you know, like, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? Do you have a right? It's like, or the opposite, which is, oh, that means I have the right to do anything I like. Take my ATV out and just drive it wherever I want to, you know, whatever. As far as national parks, their policy is no take. So you can't even pick up a stone in a national park. So just put those behind you. Great access there with the link that I gave. And knowing when it's ready to pick the seed can be easy or it can be complicated. There's a continuum there. Remember the onion with the little black BBs? That's easy to see. You've probably got good seed, right? But sometimes it's not quite so easy to tell. And if you do cut in crosswise with a cross section, you want to see white. That's mom plant packing a lunch for baby. That's the endosperm. That's the starch that is needed to produce the first leaves because it can't photosynthesize till it has chlorophyll in leaves. And a hard dough stage, you want it to be firm inside. Those are two pictures of what it might look like. And here's what you won't want. You don't want it to be wet or liquid or green inside. It's not ready yet. And this might confuse you. Here's a plant that is indeterminate, meaning that it continues to grow and elongate its tip as it grows. Up on top, those green structures are not seed capsules, those are buds. Now later, it's gonna look like that. It's brown, straw colored, so that helps with your identification. And when you cut inside, you see brown on the edges because you're seeing a seed coat. And you're also seeing the white endosperm inside, and it's nice and firm. And it's not liquid anymore. What if your seeds are a little bit too early? Now we've got a bunch in the hand there in which some of it's brown, the heads, those capsules, some of it's green. And the green isn't ready, but the brown is. But if you wanted to just grab it and cut a couple of inches with it, you can lay it out for a couple weeks and let it dry. Just keep it under 80 degrees and low humidity and lay it out. What happens after you have finished collecting? I like to let my seed dry for a couple weeks. Ideally, you want maybe 15% moisture. Well, that's something you can't really test. But if you let them dry, lay them out on newspaper, they'll get to that point here in Colorado because that's our relative humidity. So watch out for the mice. I've had that problem. Fruits are different. Why? Because they're wet and you've got some flesh there, so you're going to have to wash it under the sink in a sieve. And then you want to keep it cool and wet. Then you can put it, this would be the exception, this you could put in plastic and put in the refrigerator, right? And keep it. But right now you could literally go out, if you could go under the snow and find rose hips like this, and you can sow it on the snow. And the packets that I'm giving out today, you can sow it on top of the snow because it's still going to get its freeze thaw. That's what we need for breaking dormancy. So cracking, abrading for cold, moist freeze thaw. Dry, fire, ponderosa pine needs fire. I wouldn't use acid bleach or chemicals unless you know kind of what you're doing because you could damage the seed. Mulch, but not very deep and light. So in summary, if you're going to use hot and dry, they go together, and cold and wet goes together. And up here, if you look out, you can see cold wet is our de rigueur. All right, when are you sowing? In the spring. Like, as I say, you could sow right now if you wanted to. Probably the perennials would do better sowing right now as opposed to later. I've been on projects with WRV, Wildlands Restoration volunteers, in which we sowed the seed on the snow in December. So it's doable. How do you do this? Well, pay attention to where you're collecting from because you need to match that environment where you're going to sow your seed, right? Don't till it with a rototiller. You're just bringing up more weed seeds that are already in the ground. And those weed seeds they're really hardy. So prep the soil, but you only need about 10% compost. Our plants up here are very accustomed to thin, poor soils and a lot of sand and gravel and such. The seeds should be in contact with the soil, usually a quarter of an inch, a half an inch. So you might lightly rake. And remember that 9 by 20 foot area, 28 foot area? This is 25 years later. So we did get plants, and most of what you're looking at here are not the plants we got from Freehouse. They are actually from seed that I collected, by where I live. And this is a north shady facing, so the stuff in there would be different than a sunny environment. Here's resources, a good reason to get the PowerPoint presentation from me, because then you can follow these links. Western Native Seed, very good. The 2 suppliers of plants without nicotinoidins. Nicotinoidins are pesticides, and they are poison to our pollinators. So that's why you would want to avoid them. These 2 places don't use them. And you can go in person to Harlequin's, or you can go to High Plains website and order on their website, and then they send back, come and pick up your plants on Friday in Loveland. Colorado Native Plant Society is awesome for information. It's $17 for a membership for a senior over 65. And what you get, the value you get is totally great. So High Country Gardens has great how-to videos. And we've got a little bit for questions. And you can always catch me behind, at the back of the room. So,
are there any commercial seed brands that you would recommend, or burpees or botanic interests, or are any of those better than any other ones? Do you feel like?
Western Native Seed. Why? Because it's Colorado seed.
Okay.
Yeah, and they will have, they've got particular mixes for different elevations, and that's what you're looking for. You want to match your elevation if you can.
Okay.
That's going to provide better success. So I hope you have enjoyed the show. Oh, yes, go ahead.
Do you recommend the wildflower seeds that you can buy, Home Depot? I do it every year, but.
I think not, but I might be more inclined to buy the wildflower mix from Ace Hardware in Netherlands. That one, you might have better success with. And in fact, I think we used that at one point, right early on when we bought the house, and God, that was 35 years ago. And it was really gravelly. I think that's where we got our seeds. And we actually had a couple of years that were gorgeous. And then the smooth brome grass came in.
Isn't that from the place in Netherlands again?
Ace Hardware,
Ace Hardware.
yeah.
You said you can collect 10 pounds of material without a permit before you have to get a collecting permit, basically?
U.S. Forest Service, yeah.
Okay.
Stay away from the trails, stay away from the roads. While you don't have to be secretive, I would say, it's not something you
flaunt
want.
it, yeah.
You don't want to flaunt it, yeah.
And then the other thing is, so we've been thinking about starting patches of more native flowers
Mm-hmm.
to try and maybe harvest and use them. Do you think that trying to get a sort of a crop is better, or just let it go natural where they're all kind of helping each other out or whatever?
I think you probably have to experiment.
Okay. Yeah.
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 If you want a crop, then you're going to have to, separate, the seeds by themselves, each species.
Okay.
Or if you just want a mix, sunny meadow mix, then, this is where I live, up by the entrance to Golden Gate Canyon State Park. And I need to go because we have other speakers. And so catch me back there, okay?